September 25, 2025. The most powerful weapon in the Ukrainian army is undoubtedly the German-made Leopard 2A4 tank. This tank has successfully completed the most difficult missions. The tank crew, emboldened by this tank, can fearlessly enter enemy positions. The tank crew had received information that Russian troops were hiding in residential areas south of Pokrovsk. Following orders from the command center, the crew moved towards the enemy's hiding places. Shortly thereafter, they arrived at the buildings where Russian soldiers were hiding. The crew started firing at enemy positions. Bombs launched from the tank began to level the buildings where the enemy was hiding. The crew fired from a safe distance, being very careful about possible traps. After the successive attacks, the buildings where the Russian soldiers were hiding were completely destroyed. The crew, having successfully completed their mission, returned safely to their position. The Leopard continued to successfully carry out its mission, instilling fear in the enemy. September 29, 2025. Ukrainian troops spot Russian infantry near a ruined building in the South Slobozhansky region. An FPV kamikaze drone rapidly heads toward the enemy soldier. The drone operator quickly and silently marks the Russian troops and glides in. The Russian soldier spots the kamikaze drone at the last moment and immediately opens fire. However, the drone operator had moved so silently that it was already too late. Seconds later, the kamikaze drone struck the Russian soldier with great force, causing a huge explosion. September 28, 2025. Ukraine's Birds of the Magyar unit spots 3 Russian soldiers entering a building. The unit immediately sends an FPV kamikaze drone toward the location of the Russian soldiers. The drone commander enters the building where the enemy soldiers are hiding. The Russian troops are shocked. Shortly thereafter, a large explosion occurs. The high destructive power of the explosive on the kamikaze drone neutralizes the enemy soldiers. The building is destroyed. September 29, 2025. Probably one of the most successful FPV drone teams on the Ukrainian Army's battlefronts is the FPV drone team called Worm Busters. This team has recently been very successful in stopping Russian infantry moving from forested areas towards Ukrainian positions. They work day and night to stop enemy activities. The team also uses powerful ammunition and kamikaze drones to carry out single-strike elimination attacks against the enemy. Here is a Russian position. Shortly after, a Russian infantryman emerges from this position and tries to get away. However, the reconnaissance team begins to pursue the enemy. The Russian trooper advances through dense vegetation and between trees in the wooded area. His goal is to avoid being detected by reconnaissance drones. However, an observation drone had already marked him. An FPV kamikaze drone was waiting, ready to attack. Finally, the Russian soldier emerges into open terrain. The kamikaze drone, ready to attack, immediately springs into action. It locks onto the enemy soldier with its radar and marks him. Soon after, it launches a fierce attack. This powerful strike causes a huge explosion. The Russian infantryman was wounded by the blast and immediately chose to disappear among the trees. However, the Ukrainian unit is still pursuing the enemy. As long as the enemy soldier does not surrender, it is impossible for him to escape this unit. September 30th, 2025. Ukrainian Air Forces deployed GBU-39 bombs for another strike. The Air Forces took action in the morning hours based on intelligence received from intelligence units. A Russian command center had been identified on the southern front. Air Force pilots immediately took action and took off in their fighter jets. When the pilots entered the attack range of the targets, they precisely entered the coordinates into the bombs. After a brief wait, the precision-guided GBU-39 bombs were fired and headed toward the enemy target. Seconds later, these bombs reached their target and caused a huge explosion. This violent explosion caused utter destruction at the Russian forces' command center. All enemy elements were eliminated. The Ukrainian Army's tank brigade attacked Russian positions in the Kharkiv region with T-72A MT tanks and BTR-4E vehicles. Russian forces had built numerous positions and shelters in the forested areas of this region. Ukrainian tanks advanced almost to the very edge of enemy positions. Tank crews subjected enemy positions to intense artillery fire. With reconnaissance drones also guiding the crew, the enemy positions were shattered. The tank fire also managed to neutralize many Russian soldiers. September 30th, 2025. Ukrainian soldiers in a critical operation succeeded in completely destroying the Grad MLRS system, an important weapon belonging to the Russian army. Following the attack, this enemy system showed a huge explosive effect. With the damage to the ammunition in the Grad system, the intensity of the explosion in this enemy system caused even greater destruction. The Grad MLRS system is one of the Russian Army's most widely used artillery weapons. It is a system capable of striking a wide area within seconds with a salvo of 40 rockets. September 26, 2025. The Typhoon unit, which is part of the Ukrainian National Guard, is drawing attention with its night operations against Russian forces. Following intelligence information received from reconnaissance units, the unit used advanced drone systems to destroy secret and important targets of the Russian army. These drones were capable of striking targets with high accuracy, even at night. In these operations, the Typhoon unit launched an intense attack on enemy targets using bomb-carrying drones. The drone operators' bomb strikes on Russian targets turned the area into daylight at night. The violent explosions caused massive destruction at enemy targets. September 29, 2025. An FPV kamikaze drone from the direction of Pokrovsk detects a Russian soldier inside a tunnel. When the enemy soldier notices the Ukrainian drone, he flees to the other end of the tunnel. The drone operator immediately makes a quick maneuver and rapidly heads towards the other end of the tunnel. The enemy soldier then turns back in the other direction. The Russian infantryman panicked upon hearing the FPV drone. He attempted to escape by immediately exiting the tunnel. However, the kamikaze drone moved very quickly and managed to catch up with the enemy soldier in a short time. A violent explosion ensued. The enemy soldier, who wanted to infiltrate the border area, had again become the target of a kamikaze drone in the border area. The Ukrainian unit attacked the enemy soldier with a second FPV kamikaze drone. With this new attack, the Russian infantry was completely neutralized. September 28, 2025. A Russian Army Lancet kamikaze drone had been moving towards the Ukrainian region to carry out an attack. However, Ukraine destroyed the enemy's kamikaze drone like this. September 26, 2025. Ukrainian troops repelled an FPV attack in the Kharkiv region, where the Russian army continues its intense offensive. As Ukrainian soldiers advanced in an off-road vehicle, Russian forces launched an attack using FPV kamikaze drones. One of the troopers in the vehicle's cabin immediately spotted the enemy's kamikaze drone and began firing his weapon. After several shots, the infantry successfully destroyed the Russian forces' attack drone. September 28, 2025. In the Ukraine-Russia war, an FPV kamikaze drone belonging to the Ukrainian forces successfully attacked a Desert Cross 1003 light off-road transport vehicle used by Russian Marines in the Pokrovsk direction, where the most intense fighting has taken place in recent days. As a result of this attack, enemy soldiers were forced to retreat from the area, while the vehicle was rendered completely unusable. This Ukrainian attack was essentially a statement of presence. September 28, 2025. Ukraine has managed to carry out military drone attack. This time, Ukrainian drone operators targeted a Russian Mi-8 helicopter. As Russian forces moved freely in the war zone, the kamikaze drone carried out an effective attack on the moving enemy vehicle. A large explosion occurred in the helicopter after the attack. The helicopter then crashed to the ground shortly after and was completely destroyed. burning in black smoke. This attack once again demonstrated the power of the Ukrainian army's drones. They seem to view every moving object belonging to the enemy as a target, and the advanced FPV kamikaze drones directed at these targets hunt down their enemies and succeed in destroying them. It demonstrated that FPV drones can be used effectively not only against ground targets, but also against air targets. September 28, 2025. In Pokrovsk, which is known as one of the hot conflict zones on Ukraine's eastern front, the Russian army continues to test different methods and tools for attacking Ukrainian positions. However, Ukrainian soldiers are closely monitoring this intense activity in the region. Reconnaissance drones track enemy vehicles as soon as they move. When the enemy is at its weakest, FPV kamikaze drones come into play. FPV drone operators closely track enemy vehicles and quickly launch attacks. Operators prefer to approach the enemy very quickly and silently. Then, with a sudden attack, Russian targets are destroyed almost instantly. The Ukrainian Phoenix Brigade, operating in the Pokrovsk direction, severely disrupted the enemy's supply and movement capabilities with these attacks. In this operation, the brigade completely destroyed 2 motorcycles, 2 UAZ-type vehicles, 4 cars, and 2 pickups, along with the invaders inside. When the brigade's drone operators detect the enemy supply vehicles in particular, they pursue the enemy with great determination. When Russian supply vehicles spot the kamikaze drones, they try to move faster. However, the kamikaze drone is faster than them. Ultimately, the enemy vehicle being engulfed in flames becomes the most concrete example of this. September 2025. The Ukrainian Army's FPV kamikaze drones have destroyed armored vehicles belonging to the Russian Army. Ukrainian soldiers are using advanced FPV kamikaze drones on the front lines to destroy millions of dollars worth of enemy armored vehicles, turning them into piles of scrap metal. Reconnaissance drones constantly patrol the warfront, quickly locating enemy targets. Moving vehicles belonging to the enemy are closely tracked. Ukrainian FPV kamikaze drone operators resolutely target the enemy. The targeted enemy positions soon give way to huge explosions. Armored vehicles and supply vehicles that have been attacked begin to burn fiercely after the attack. Ukrainian kamikaze drones also completely destroy vehicles abandoned by the enemy, preventing their reuse. Ukrainian military personnel are not only destroying enemy ground vehicles, they are also detecting and destroying Russian military unmanned aerial vehicles in the air. The Russian military is attempting to carry out reconnaissance missions and launch attacks using numerous unmanned aerial vehicles. However, Ukrainian defenses are constantly tracking enemy vehicles. The Ukrainian military is prepared to counter enemy attacks in every area of the warfront. The Russian army tries to attack Ukrainian positions both on motorcycles and on foot, but most of the time they fail to reach their targets. The Ukrainian army's reconnaissance drones manage to detect the enemy very quickly. The coordinated movement of the units also contributes greatly to the destruction of Russian targets in a shorter time.